our next event in the Dynamic Speaker Series. We're very lucky today to be having a nice conversation with our friends over at Creative Solutions, really with a focus on the Teradek line within their company and all the benefits and different aspects that product is really coming with. And I think it's obviously a very timely conversation with everything that's happening in the world right now. And we're seeing lots and lots of things push that direction. So we're very excited to be having this call today. We're streaming live from our Facebook channel, our YouTube channel, if you're on the dynamic rental side. And then we're also streaming from the Creative Solutions side on their YouTube channel. So welcome everybody who's joining us. My name's Austin Rios. I'm the president of Dynamic Rentals. I'm joined by the rest of the team here, Brandon Zachary, our CEO, Tom Smith, our head of sales, Sean Sims, our chief technology officer, and Coda Aranda, our tech in our Atlanta office. And you guys are probably getting familiar with our faces and our ever so lovely Anna Schmidt, who's our marketing director. We're just very lucky to continue to be having these conversations. We really appreciate everybody's engagement. We've had lots of follow-up and different discussions about the different speakers that we've had. So we're very pleased with all of your questions and look forward to having this conversation today. I'm going to hand it off to Brandon, who will introduce the Creative Solutions team.
Yeah, thanks, Austin. So we're definitely excited to have you guys here. So we're joined by Greg Smokler and Richard Billett. And Greg is the head of Cine Products at Creative Solutions. And so he is somebody that I've known for a while now, and he's kind of been my go-to over at Teradek for knowledge and also product support. So he's been phenomenal, and really looking forward to hearing from him. And we definitely have plenty of questions for him and Richard, who is head of product quality. So all products on the Teradek side go through him, and including the updates and things like that. I'm sure Richard can speak a little bit more in detail on that, as I know our team have questions on that as well. Greg, if you want to kick it off, definitely looking forward to what you have going on.
Thanks for having me, everyone. Been doing a lot of these conversations about remote monitoring, so it's kind of finally figured out a little bit of a path to explain what we're doing with trying to help our sets get back to work. So it's great to have the platform to talk about it, and it's not super simple or a really obvious thing, since it's a new kind of paradigm for what we're used to in production. So it's really great to be able to just get some knowledge out there to our partners and out into the world. Just to quickly, thanks for the introduction. I'm working on products from Small HD and Teradek, and I work with the Wooden Camera as well, to just kind of the products that are used in the cine space, which is what we call like the production world, as opposed to things that are used for like live sports or streaming, live sharing products. That it's not really what I've been focusing on. And Richard is he's the god of product quality for Teradek, and every single product that goes through engineering has to clear his desk. So he's the one that catches all of the bugs and makes them get fixed. But also, if you find a bug, you can blame Richard.
Feed it back through me. Yeah, it's either my fault or I'll get it fixed for you.
But also, he's like completely the head of support and for rental houses and new products that are kind of, we're finding their idiosyncrasies. Like Richard is a really amazing point of contact for you guys to get in touch with for kind of 911 issues. If he's awake, he'll probably help you solve them, because Richard's been at Teradek since the founding of Teradek, and he pretty much knows everything about every product, software. So I'm going to be giving out his phone number live for the whole audience. So, and he has a newborn, so he is up most of the night anyway. So it's useful for us.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for having me. I think that, you can please ask any questions. The kind of overview that we want to share is this idea that, obviously COVID is going on and we want to try to get back to work. But we know that what we're hearing is that once where people are starting to shoot now, we can talk a little bit about like these crazy remote productions that are going on. But I think the thing that's really, we need to get, our businesses back online is some form of actual physical production where people are shooting on a set together. And when that happens, there's going to need to be a lot of space physically between people. And that means that the video village and the cameras have to be separated by a good amount of air. And no, we're not going to be able to see a video village cart with 20 people crammed around it anymore, or at least in the near future. We're going to need to spread all the viewing environments out on the set, and then also take advantage of our technology that will allow people to view Video Village, nearby or even really far away through, in another side of the planet, through the internet. So that's kind of like the overview. We have, as everyone knows, the Teradek Bolt product, which is already delivering really reliable wireless video on every set out there, with no delay, visually lossless, pristine video, which classically has had 4 receivers per transmitter. From what I'm hearing from productions and studios and rental houses, people are starting to hear that there's going to be, because the Video Village is kind of the critical monitoring station, their desire will be to have more video villages for one person, or maybe a couple people that are somehow distancing, maybe that the DP and the director in a pod together or something, I don't know. But basically, with that need, the Bolt 4K line, which is our next generation wireless video system, comes kind of into play, not just because it can do way higher quality video image and 10-bit HDR wireless image, but because it also has the ability to do 6 receivers from each transmitter. So you can have more monitoring stations with that same high quality, higher quality than before image and reliability. But one other great thing about Bolt 4K system is that it can use, if you're sending HD signals, it can have a better image quality than the current bolts or the previous generation bolts, but with half the channel bandwidth. So what that basically means is that you can fit either more transmitters into one environment, which means more wireless cameras, or in a crowded, really loud, bad RF environment, you can have a better chance of having a strong signal for the bolts. So we have some cool, new announcements coming on that. But for now, I think, the Bolt 4K helps, in that regard for the actual onset physical video village monitoring, people that need a monitor to see the image. And then the second part of onset is every other person that would be cramming in behind the DP and the director, they're going to need to see an image. So we have some really great mobile Wi-Fi monitoring products. I don't know, you guys are maybe familiar with the Serve Pro. It's like a blue transmitter that sends a video stream over Wi-Fi. So you can send to 10 different iPads or iPhones or Androids over Wi-Fi, a really nice high quality image, which has pretty low delay. I mean, you don't want to pull focus or operate a remote camera off of it, but it has, you know, maybe 200, 300 millisecond delay, which is like 6 or 7, 8 frames.
Minimum's actually about 4 frames, 3 or 4 frames.
Sure, yeah. Usually, yeah, I mean, so somewhere between a frame, you said 4 frames? Somewhere between 4 and 8 frames delay, 1080p. And what's great about that is you can show a multi-view. So you could have a 4-up display. I'm going to show you an image of it really quick. You can have a 4-up display on your iPad and see all 4 cameras, or even on your phone, and switch between them in a full screen mode. So here, just quickly share my screen for anybody that's not aware. The app is pretty cool. It's very familiar to, I think, like a set person, because it operates kind of like a monitor. You've got a lot of tool buttons below. You could even give it to a boom operator to watch on their phone. And then you can switch between these cameras, or you can go to a side-by-side mode. And if you flip this into portrait, you would get those full screen top and bottom, or you can look at all 4 cameras simultaneously. And one other really great thing for, I don't know if it's got it here, but one other great thing for, I don't think it shows here. Oh yeah, frame grab. So you can review images. So one of the things that I think is really annoying about like the DP and director and creative team that's really critically monitoring Video Village is a continuity person, whether it's props or hair and makeup person, will come and they'll like put their phone in front of your face and take a picture of the monitor, because that's the only way they can get a really quick image, frame grab of that shot that they need to reference. So what's cool about this is that I just stopped my share. What's cool about this is that you can do a frame grab any moment of a 4-up or of a 1-up, right? And it will save those images to the camera roll of the device. So you can go and look in your photos of your iPhone or whatever, but you can also compare them in the app. So if you have something that you're trying to compare a shot went over, or a shot from another day or another episode or season or whatever, you can actually overlay that image over the current live feed and kind of slide a slider to see which one, to see how you're matching the shot. So I think that's a pretty super useful feature for kind of giving everyone that needs to see the image on set the ability to see something without clustering all together and being safe. So that's kind of like the set. And but what's great about the Serve Pro is that it works over a network infrastructure. So really your network can be your set. It could be out at the makeup trailer, it could be in the production office, it could be if you're in a studio and you're all on the same network, it could be anywhere that your network is, those streams will show up. But we also have the ability to connect those camera streams through the internet to anywhere, with a very low latency, high quality stream, using our cloud-based stream management system, which is called Core, Teradek Core. So using Core, you can send a camera stream or many camera streams to many different destinations. So we've talked about the set and monitoring on set. How do you get a feed from set out to the internet and beyond? You need to have an internet connection. So you can plug your Serve Pro or a Teradek Cube product into an Ethernet jack that's plugged into the internet, or you can actually connect it over Wi-Fi to a router or an access point that has an internet connection, and then you can go from there. If you're in a remote location and you don't have Wi-Fi or internet, you will need to use a cell phone or a cellular connection to connect to the internet. What's great is that we make a couple devices that will actually help connect you and your sets to a cellular through cellular to the internet. And those products are basically two things: the node and the bond. So let me just quickly bring this up. Please stop me if you have any questions going on and on. But so the node, it's a modem, right? It's like your cell phone, but it only does one thing, which is provide a cellular connection to a device over USB. I think most people remember those old USB sticks that you could plug into your laptop. This is literally the same thing. It's just an updated version of it, and we've made our own inside of a rugged chassis with a LEMO connector instead of a USB connector. And I think it has, yeah, if you look here, this is where your SIM card goes. So everyone has seen the SIM card that goes into the side of your phone. The same thing goes for this. You just need to get a SIM card from a provider of your choice, stick it in this, and it will now be able to provide a internet connection to whatever it is plugged into. What we like to do is plug it into our encoders. So if you use a Teradek, hold on, where do I have a picture of this? If you have a Teradek cube, see if I can find a picture right here. It's here. So this is a cube. There's a USB port right in the top of it. And it's basically the same thing as a Serve Pro with a bunch more capabilities. You can get a cube and plug a node into the top, and that will automatically connect you to the internet. And then we'll talk about how to connect to core. But basically, it's a cube and a node connecting to core. And then the more complicated and kind of the next level of this is using cellular bonding to have a better connection, cellular connection, which is the Teradek bond. And this form is in a backpack. But basically, it's the same thing as a cube with a node, except for it takes, trying to find a good picture to zoom in on here. It takes 4 cellular modems and gives you 4 times better connection. Here it is. So it's got this additional hardware that you connect 4 cellular modems to, which will increase your upload speed or your upload bandwidth, as well as give you better reliability if your connections fail. So it's kind of it gets into the nitty gritty of the streaming stuff, but like you need a minimum, you kind of want to set a minimum bit rate to have a good stream up into the internet to show your clients a good quality image. If you have a really slow cell phone connection at the location where you are, you can take that connection and increase the reliability of it by 4 times, because you have 4 chances to not fail, to have the connection not fail. We can also aggregate the speed of it 4 times and have a 4 times faster internet connection. So it's really about, are you in an environment where you're on location and moving around a lot and you don't know what your cell connection is going to be like? Are you sometimes going to maybe need to have a cellular connection? Those are the questions that you're going to have to start being confronted with when you're sending out gear. There's ways of checking cell coverage. There's like a pretty good map. I think, Richard, you sent it to me recently, or I don't remember who it was, but we can dig it up. Basically, there's some like cell phone coverage maps that you can check, but I think people will discover that your mileage may vary as you're, behind a building or in some weird location. you have to kind of decide how hardcore you want to be about, being prepared. The bond is a bit more expensive than having a cube with a single cell phone modem, but it offers all this additional reliability if you're moving around a lot and you don't know what you're going to encounter. Another thing to mention is that you can use a bunch of different cellular companies in these modems. So you could get AT&T SIM cards, you can get Verizon SIM cards. You can swap them out yourself if you want. You could have a bag full of nodes with different company modems depending where you are. If you're in that kind of a production environment, you might need to be able to just swap it in and out, if you're moving around. But I think it's just something that you will have to start having a conversation about in prep. Where are you shooting? Maybe you need to take a Verizon and an AT&T node, because sometimes one is better than the other in that environment. It's one of those things.
And Greg, how popular have these been, in the last 10 weeks? Have you seen a massive kind of uptick in sales on these particular items?
Yeah, so we've had a lot of interest in the Cube and the Bond in the last month or six weeks. There's been a lot. I mean, just because previously these products were really used for news gathering. You put that's why we built that backpack. I mean, you don't need the backpack to run the Bond. It just holds all this stuff and a battery in there. But it's for a news thing, right? You're shooting, the riots live, right? And it can stream through Core with low latency to your local news feed. The Cubes are used for all kinds of reasons, whether streaming a concert live or a church service to your Facebook page. People use it for point-to-point video over IP, even in one kind of a campus. So there's a lot of uses, but it wasn't really used that much in the production space because everybody would just gather in one place and see the image at Video Village. You might have two video villages, one for client and agency and one for production. But, that was not really ever part. I mean, there was maybe a few jobs, like a crazy Apple job that would needed to have one place where all 16 crews are streaming back to the command center, but it was not part of normal production. Now, all of the production that's going on are these kind of crazy remote shoots where they drop a camera off to a talent's house and they have to stream it live to the crew. I don't know if you guys have heard about these jobs yet, but I'm sure your gear has gone out on it perhaps. And so we're putting a lot of these devices into those environments. And then I think, people are starting to buy gear to get ready for the next kind of level of production, which will be really small crews. But again, connecting the client and agency and maybe even a director or producer to the image, they're just not going to be able to be on set. So I think that's where a lot of that interest is being driven from. So have you guys gotten some? I don't know.
I was going to say, Greg, with you moving into this production space, do you think you'll work on a more elegant solution in a backpack? Do you think you'll make a Peli case or something that's a bit more,
It's a good question. We do have, so I'll just share really quickly. There is a regular desktop version. I'll go back to show you. Or there's a camera top version. Let me see. I'll quickly find it.
Yeah, we definitely have talked about packaging it differently for this space, obviously, because a backpack, the backpack is fine. It has a battery plate. You just stick a battery in it and stick it on the floor, but a Pelican case will probably be a little better for getting kicked around. And
yeah, so this is,
out of places.
We actually do make one still that has USB slots on it for the old school modems, but you can't really find these modems anymore. But you can see how that one can just plop on it does lacked ruggedness. So that's why we made the Limo version of it, which is just basically passing USB through a rugged Pro connector. And then we make a bracket that the little nodes, the nodes can connect to, which is this guy here. Can you see this thing? Basically, you can bolt 4 of those. You can see this, my mouse, right?
Yeah.
You can bolt 4 of those to the top of the bond. And, you know, it's not a Peli case for sure, but it's definitely, you know, it's kind of ruggedized and connected up, you know, without anything that's going to fall off or break off. But it's a really good point, and we're looking at some designs for that. So I'd love, you know, if you guys have feedback on it, we'd love to share.
Sure.
Share with you guys.
And Richard, if people were to buy the backpack and then rehouse it in their own cases, are there any cases like, you know, the typical kind of wooden inner space case that you may find on set? So are there any cases that if you put it in there, it's going to downgrade like what you can do with it, like affect the ability to stream?
I mean, the main thing would just be ventilation for it. So if you do put it in a case with the intention of having it closed, you would need some active cooling in it. So even in the backpack, we've designed it so it has vents and a fan inside to draw air in and shoot it kind of out up the top. The cap for it is actually raised off of the rest of the backpack so that the air can flow out of it. So that would be the main consideration. But we've definitely had customers, even with like the previous versions of these, take the guts of it and package it into a Pelican case and drill a hole and bring a BNC out externally so you can just feed video straight into it. So it's definitely doable.
Have you guys thought about putting it on a belt before? Because I spent some time working for NBC and ABC, and we used a product called the Live View, and it essentially worked just like this, but it didn't have nearly as much safety nets as your product does. But we simply dialed in a long phone number, and then the bureau up in New York would get all the footage that we were capturing on location down in Alabama or Georgia, wherever it was, and then edit it there in the station. But I would wear it on a belt, or the cameraman would wear it on a belt. Have you guys thought about that, or would it be easily adapted to be wearable?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could put this on a belt pretty easily. Like they make those Anton Bauer belts now. I don't know, you guys probably have some of those, right? You could theoretically put a male gold mount plate on there and click it onto a belt or something. To be honest, it's not, the backpack is kind of what everybody has asked for. It's got ventilation. I mean, the thing gets a little bit warm, you know, to have it too close to your belt.
And the smaller your back might make you sweat a little.
I mean, it's the backpack has like ventilation in it, and it's comfortable, and it has a big old battery. You know, I don't know. I mean, I do think that some of those things will be like a cool rental house value add. Like you can make your little run case for the bond. The way that your jobs want it. And then obviously if it becomes like one specific, we're still kind of finding out how people want to deploy it. So if there's really something specific, we'll definitely make something for everyone. But yeah, for now, I think it's pretty versatile. It's got mounting points. It's pretty compact if you take it out of the backpack. So you can do a lot.
Yeah, it seems pretty modular. It seems like it can easily lend itself to many applications.
Another thing that's cool is that because it's a USB cable, you can have the 4 cell modems, you know, up high or out of the way, and have the bond stashed somewhere else. So gives you some more versatility there.
Greg, if I can just jump in here. So clearly your main sort of first line would be your sort of TX and RX environment, where your director and your probably focus puller and everybody that's primary in line would be in your application, the TX and RX environment, which you guys are so known for. And then you've kind of piggyback off an existing GSM network, which is why you've opted to use the cellular network for the second line. So agency, anybody else that wants monitoring, and you're using the GSM network. What happens if that GSM network's not available and you still need to provide viewing for the secondary application on set?
When you say secondary, do you mean local people that are there but like spread out?
Yeah.
Okay, so for that, I would say the second line is really Wi-Fi rather than cellular. So we make the Serve Pro and the iOS app that runs off of Wi-Fi. So we make a pretty nice, like rugged Wi-Fi access point called the Link. Actually, I think I have an image of it here. I mean, we like to recommend that people, when they get multiple Serve Pros, they get a Link with them because it's a rugged metal chassis and it's nice long range, high quality Wi-Fi access point. You can put it has a battery plate on the back. So it provides a nice Wi-Fi infrastructure on set. You can use anything for Wi-Fi. Obviously you want to pick a good router. Things that are not made out of metal don't have a very long lifespan on set. So that's why we made this device. But it's just a high quality access point. So what we would recommend is you get one of these for your local people that don't need a TX RX bolt system. This will create the network that everyone on set can join. And it's expandable. But if you're on studio, and there is a Wi-Fi network there's already installed infrastructure, you can use that as well. It's just any sort of networking infrastructure locally is usable for those products. So that's kind of what we look at for the second line. And then if that network has an internet connection, you can use that same network and same devices to stream locally and send into core to go out into the internet. So maybe we can go there next. Talk about how that workflow would work. So we've got like our critical viewers, DP, operator, camera assistant, maybe production design, and some critical people that need to see a high quality, a super low latency, high quality image. We've got everybody else that can look on their mobile device or their laptop. We're coming out with a version of that viewer that'll run on Mac OS. And then once you've got all that covered, or if you can't have any of those people, you can also use one of our devices to get it up into the internet using either a regular internet connection that's like a cable modem or some sort of network internet connection, or cellular, right? So now once we're talking about remote monitoring, we're talking about the Cube and the Bond. And we like to focus on our core platform. So Richard, do you by any chance have it open on your computer?
I do.
So
and Greg,
Richard go ahead.
We actually had a couple questions come in via the Teradek Facebook stream. Dash Adams asked, does Core support side ingest captions, or is it only in the SDI ingest stream?
It is just in the SDI ingest stream. We don't support side loading in the captions.
Got it. Okay.
So you can put your caption encoder in front of our encoder, embed 608 CA 608 or 708 captions into the SDI stream, and we will send that up. But we don't have any way to add those captions in past our encoder.
But you can load in a watermark in the encoder that would go downstream. So that would be one caption that would never change.
A single caption, yeah.
But I mean, it is a question, you know, for that caption thing, I think is more for like a live stream question, which please keep adding, you know, those questions about like more of a sharing live broadcast scenario. But for the remote monitoring scenario, I think a ton of people will ask about, you know, security, and a watermark is part of that. So you can load in your own custom watermark on the cube, and everything downstream will have it. You can also use a watermark feature of Core to add an overlay of some kind in Core. But we can talk about that in a sec when we look at Core. What's the other question? Hey guys. Hey, is there a solution like Skype TX to make online interactions with low latency and better quality for professional broadcasters? Like a custom Zoom like StreamYard, but with your encoders and decoders. Online interaction. So is this like a point-to-point like live broadcast video conferencing question? I
think part of it is a question that sort of connecting it to a question that's we have heard, as far as I can understand. We have been asked a lot about the not just sending the video off of the set, but actually having the collaboration. Obviously right now Zoom has become a very popular platform for that, for low latency video collaboration, but the video itself is not particularly high quality. There are ways to get video from our encoders into Zoom through third-party software, and we will be looking to support kind of that midpoint, so to help people get video into Zoom, kind of like a virtual webcam. And then we are looking at, basically latency becomes the biggest concern and the biggest problem to solve. A lot of our products, our streaming platforms, are designed around high quality, robust video. And often you kind of have a three items you can trade off. You have quality, you have robustness, and you have latency. So you can pick two, basically. Solving for all three, keeping the latency down while giving you super high quality video that's robust, is the tricky part. So we're always looking at ways to reduce the latency without sort of losing the other two, the reliability or the quality.
Okay, and then so one of the things that sorry.
I was just going to read the other question from Justin Marks.
Oh, okay.
He says, "Hi Teradek geniuses," which is very true. So thank you, Greg and Richard.
Thank you.
With the COVID-19 world taking over our industry, I had a question about antennas for drones, as we are being called to do more and more. They're relying on our system to provide video. He's got a Teradek 1000, 3000 XT. And what would the best positioning for antennas be for the transmitter? And if there are any additional antennas that would work better? We have poor signal issues on our drone.
You, Greg.
This is actually you, Richard.
Yeah, I'm not. Unfortunately, I am not an antenna expert.
Yeah.
We did recently do some work with a company that flies a lot of very high-end drones for a lot of high-end drone cinematography that would probably be able to answer that better, but I don't really have a good answer.
When you say poor signal issues, I mean, obviously line of sight is really important. With the 10,000, it has a narrower pattern for receiving the signal. Yeah. Vertical pattern is pretty narrow. So if you're pointing it like this and the drone is over here, it's not going to really catch it. So you want to obviously try to aim it at the drone. I'm sure you've thought of that already. As far as poor signals, it's possible that you have a damaged antenna connector, or there's also there's many other types of antennas that would work on an RPSMA connector that's for 5 gigahertz. Our devices are certified for the antennas that we sell with them, so we can't really recommend any alternatives out there. But there are many alternatives out there. So, I mean, we do see a lot of people using other types of antennas. I don't know whether or not they are legal. They're certainly not something that we are able to recommend, if that answers your question.
Well, I do wonder myself if, could it be a distance issue? I understand line of sight. You more than likely do have line of sight with a drone, but could it be a distance issue in terms of flying the drone? I don't know.
Certainly distance will attenuate the signal strength, and as you get further away, you have a harder time catching it. Richard can swear by the fact that we have tested the Bolt 10K to achieve distances beyond 10,000 feet.
The 10,000 is for 10,000 feet, and it's basically we go from a pier on a beach, and we have a line of sight down the coastline. I believe we got to about like 11,500 feet before we couldn't maintain the signal any longer. But it's a pretty controlled. We know that environment. We know it works there. So obviously, different environments can be different. But
yeah, I mean, and obviously, like, keep your antennas clear and have them be spaced properly, straight out. Don't like have them be like this, underneath a piece of carbon fiber, because that will really limit your effectiveness. You want to.
Yeah. And also the bandwidth that the drone is using to operate and do everything it needs to do. You have so much radio interference up there around that drone that you're probably just asking too much of science at certain points. You know what I mean? Because you're asking a lot of different radio signals to work in harmony with each other, and sometimes it's just not that way.
Yeah, it can be interference, not even intentional interference, or a bad cable that's like transmitting noise across many harmonics.
Or it could be a bad internal antenna cable. There's a lot of things. I think there's.
But we have a lot of very, very happy drone cinematography customers. A lot of people use it. So reach out to us. Maybe we can help you. Hit me up or something on Facebook or whatever.
Greg, just something that I obviously in my previous life came from a sort of RX and TX world myself, and more in the aviation side. Is there not anywhere or anything that we can kind of have some form of repeater station or something where we can relay the signal, so you can kind of piggyback one signal off another and then kind of get a further range?
I mean, what you could do is there's no way to do a repeater. The way that the technology works, it doesn't work that way. But you could get a second TX-RX and just loop it out. So if you needed to, it's basically a daisy chain. So you could go drone to ground, or a drone to another drone, and then a transmitter on that, and go to another receiver, and you could double your range. We've done that actually, like on racetracks. We've looked at this kind of scenario where you're basically just adding another link to the chain. That would be the way to do it, and people have done that, to just get really long range. And there are low gain antennas that I think technically would be legal to use, that are directional,
possibly,
like a directional antenna. That would be really useful. And if you had like a very particular installed environment, obviously when things are moving dynamically, you need to have a person aiming it, or a tracker of some kind, which we've also seen people have been building. I don't know if you've seen them, but a lot of there's this guy Stephen O, who has a really cool company doing aerial stuff. I got a coffee coming in. has a lot of people have built like custom like tracker heads that will follow the antenna around the drone around. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
And Greg, you just mentioned about daisy chaining. It's a question we keep getting asked, but how on set, if you need more monitors for people and receivers, how many times can you daisy chain on set before it's gonna, affect the product?
Yeah, so with the current systems running in their normal operation, we really don't recommend that people try to fit in more than 4 systems together.
Yeah, once you get past, you can do 4 without really having to think about it. Anything after that, technically, there's about 11 frequencies on the previous like Bolt 3000. So they're right next to each other. So if you have 2 things on the 2 frequencies that are right next to each other, they can't interfere. So you could get up to 6 or 7 working. It's just beyond the first few, it'll be tricky. So you can also switch to 20 megahertz, which basically doubles the amount of frequencies, but with some other trade-offs, and you can get more on set. But I mean, that's why we were talking about the Wi-Fi solutions, where you can have your main 0 delay feed and then plug in a Surf Pro at the Video Village and have that send Wi-Fi to a whole bunch of iPads, and use those as the monitors, because if one Surf Pro streams to 10 iPads, that's all on the same Wi-Fi channel. It doesn't use different frequencies for each client that's connected.
And you can use 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi, which will be totally clear of the Bolt spectrum. But one thing to mention is that Bolt 4K doesn't just do 4K streams, video feeds. You can do HD, which is very common for many monitors. I think as we move into 4K monitors, it'll start at the kind of critical monitoring stations, DIT, DP, director, but everyone else will still have an HD monitor. If it's a little one, it'll be HD for quite some time. So you could really send a lot more HD feeds with Bolt 4K, because you can use 20 megahertz channels rather than 40. So you could basically theoretically double the number of transmitters on a set something to think about there. The Bolt 3000 does have a 20 megahertz mode, but it kind of lowers the image quality a bit. So if that's a really big concern for you, could be something.
Yeah, you'd be better off using the Surf Pro.
Yeah.
What's the power consumption of these? Because I'm trying to think of all of the problems that you try to head off during a prep for a drone shoot. And one of the problems that drone technology hasn't been able to address yet is that most oftentimes your payload is at least 40 pounds. If you got a cinema camera on there and then a decent piece of glass, and your flight time is just cut. So what is the power consumption of these devices that we would be needing to use? Is it going to cut into the flight time dramatically, or no?
I think, in the movie environment, you need a transmitter generally. So it wouldn't be any more, whether it's a cellular or a Bolt. I think it's about 10 watts.
That's not that bad.
One. So yeah. Should we go? Do you guys want to go back into kind of the web streaming, remote monitoring conversation?
Yeah, I think that'd be good. I don't know, the reliability and support we get from Teradek has been fantastic. And I know that we've got a lot of Richard to thank for the support. But
it's more the support team, less me.
Yeah.
They get the credit.
Yeah, it would be great to have a bit better of an understanding of core. If you don't mind kind of going over that in terms of, because I know there are plans, but it would be productions that would be taking advantage of those, the monthly subscription fees and things like that. If you don't mind just kind of going over a little bit of what the main benefits of core really are post COVID, I kind of have a feeling like we all do, that that's going to be, a product, that a lot of productions could end up using.
Yeah. So Core is basically a dashboard that you can manage a bunch of streams and send them into a bunch of different destinations. When you have an encoder, you turn on your encoder and you go through a menu selection and you connect it to an account that you've made on Teradek Core. You sign up for an account, it's free, but there's some charges associated with using the account to send video out. So you've got your Core account, you've connected a cube to it. It'll show up like this in your dashboard, basically. These ones are this is the engineering or sales account, so there's all these other things. This is a cube that's live, so you can click on it and see the details of it. This is streaming live. You can see that it's in secure mode, so that means that it's encrypted with SRT. And it's a good, stream quality. And you can kind of see this, the source of the input. It's coming in over HDMI, the frame rate, resolution, audio, what codec you're using. So our devices can use, some of our devices can send H.265 or H.264. Some of that stuff. And then you can, from this page, you can share easily to a destination. Just kind of overlay, go back a little bit. So this idea of streaming and sharing video is kind of, I think, new for the rental houses and production people, right? As I was saying before, we're not used to setting up streaming to remote locations and managing all that. Core is capable of like a million different things, right? People use it for sending video point to point from one encoder box to another decoder box, right? You can send video into one box, send it through Ethernet or internet connection, and get video out of another box and plug that into a monitor. You can also send video to a content distribution network like Facebook Live, like we're doing now, YouTube, any of the platforms out there we can stream using Core. There's a bunch of other things that you can use Core for. So when we in the production world turn on Core, there's no button right on the front that says like start my video village. So I would just like tell you a little bit about how to do that. But from a high level, there's a couple ways that we want to kind of create this virtual video village. I would say there's two main ways that are the really simple way of sharing the video stream using Core. One is the share button using Core TV. I'll show you right now how that works. You see my encoder here. You click on this little share button and it'll let you send a secure single-use link to one individual. So Brandon, is your email? Well, I don't want to share your email address, but we can basically, when we go offline, I'll write it on here, but like you can basically send this link. It'll show up in your email as a hyperlink. You click on it, it'll open either in a browser on your phone or your computer, or it'll open our proprietary or our iOS app called Core TV, and it'll play in that app. So this is like super simple for a client to do. Basically, they just need to get this link in their email. It's secure, it's encrypted. No one else will be able to use it when they're using it, and once they open it. So, I think it covers that like security issue and the simplicity of it. The Core TV app, which you can download from the App Store, Google Play Store, Oh wait, no, Core TV is not on Android yet. Sorry, it's iOS app. It's a super simple, easy way to get stream over the internet, and it's expandable, so you can send dozens of these to different people, and they can look at their iOS, their phone, their browser on their computer. We're also adding the viewer app that I showed you before that works with Serve Pro as an endpoint, so you can use that. You can send multiple streams to that and see, a multi-view page on your iOS device, Android device, and desktop on a Mac. So that's kind of like the one way, using Core TV. As the idea of it is that it's just sending individual video streams through the internet in a really simple way. You click on the share button, you type in someone's email address, an email pops up in their inbox, and they open the stream and they watch it. Pretty simple. The other way that I think is maybe a little higher end in a way is that you can connect a decoder to Core the same way that you can connect an encoder. If I share my screen again, there's a destination page here. So I've got my sources, and I would have a destination here, which I don't currently have added, but you add it the same way as a device as you would the encoder side. And once that's added, you can now have this at your house or at your production office, or bolted to the back of a OLED monitor that you put in a Pelican case and FedEx to someone. They plop it onto their coffee table, stab in an Ethernet cable, and they can get a really high quality, low latency, secure stream through Core in that way. So, the decoders have HDMI and SDI, so you could just send this box to someone's house, they plug it into their TV and get a stream on there. And so I think kind of for Video Village, that's, to me, the simplest way to kind of sell it. Now, you can complicate it, and there's a bunch of additional stuff that people are using. Go ahead, Richard.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, yeah. So those are kind of the two main use cases that we're seeing people do right now. I've been working with a couple of guys where literally the guy was in New York, and he'd sent the pre-configured encoder to a job in LA. They connected it to Wi-Fi at the talent house, and it sends up to Core. And as soon as that video now is live, that decoder has access to the video. So it'll be basically as soon as it comes online, your monitor will light up with the image. So once it sort of requires a little legwork just to log all the devices into that Core account, and then you associate the two. But once those two are linked, they're linked anywhere in the world. All they need is an internet connection.
I got a quick question for you guys. I'm sort of circling back to the security thing. And what's to stop somebody? Let's say I get all these devices shipped to my house so I can monitor a feed, and I'm sitting there and watching it on my computer, and I'm running a separate screen recording app. Given that I might get a watermark in the footage, but is there any sort of security measures to keep me from getting a copy of this footage?
No, I mean, if you give someone your bank account password, you're gonna have to trust them. I'd say at a certain level, like that's your set.
Exactly.
You let people on your set. You let people on your. You FedEx someone some gear. I think at a certain point that's like.
You got to have some scouts on, so to speak.
We are looking at this like watermark thing that would be invisible on the screen to the eye, but if you could like analyze it and it would be hidden, and you could bust someone. It is something we're looking at adding right now for that kind of a thing. It wouldn't prevent them from doing it, but it would be the kind of thing that you could sue them and send them.
It'll tie their email address to that content that's being taken.
We can also, that's good. Yeah.
just for the sake of
We actually could just tell you that it's in there already, and that if you do it, we'll catch you.
Yeah, you could just
And
scare
then
it. You could play a little bit of
invisible.
offense.
It's actually in there now. Actually, now that I think about it.
Oh yeah, it was in the
Don't worry
fine
about
print.
it. Yeah, it's in there.
Yeah,
You
so
can't
I
see
just
it,
know
though,
that
for sure.
sometimes the security of some of this footage, because growing up, I've seen bootleg versions of some Star Wars movies and things like that, where it's like, oh darn, I shouldn't be seeing this. And I know that keeping footage secure is like keeping somebody's social security number secure. It carries that much value to them. And so I think if they were to know that this stream and all of this cloud stuff that's been going on, which is great, if there was some added security to knowing that, hey, if I send this to Bob, Dave, and Joe in the UK, he can't send it to Manny, Mo, and Jack.
So I can show you. I'll share my screen and I'll just talk about some of the security stuff that we do have in place. Let me do that right now. Okay, so you should see my screen now. So I have the core interface up. So one kind of minimum level thing you can do is enable just a watermark on the encoder stream. So you can do that from the encoder. This is the encoder configuration interface. You can enable overlays in here and just put like a title, like whatever, not for release. But in core, when we have this label here that shows stream secured, that's a toggle that basically, when enabled, so we have a lot of people, they're using this stuff because they want to share the video. So for them, the security is not so important. It's designed to go to Facebook, it's designed to go to YouTube, whatever. When you do want to prevent other people from having access to it, so we have this secure mode enabled. What that does is it changes any of the output streams from core to SRT, which stands for Secure Reliable Transport. So this is encrypted and has a passphrase associated with it. Any decoder that connects would basically get configured with those passphrases. Say you'd shared this to the 3 people that you mentioned over in the UK, and then you decide later, okay, well, now we finished this job, so they no longer can have access to that video, but my next client will need the same access. So you can just refresh, basically reset that passphrase. So that will change the encryption key for the video, and it'll cut off anyone that you had previously given access to that video. The other part, when you are stream sharing via an email address, this will actually create unique passphrases for each of the people viewing that content. So if I've shared this with me, when it opens up that stream, when I'm accessing that on my device, that passphrase is active for me and for me only. So then if I want to rescind that access, I can just exit out right here and kind of unshare the video. So in the app, there's no way to record it. But if you were to say, take this stream, so the safest way is basically to only share the stream via this sharing method, because you can always take the access away. And in our viewing apps, there's no way to record it. Although I guess, yeah, you could record your screen in a browser.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, like, someone can film their TV, and it's just like, there's just no way around it. So if you have something that's that sensitive, you're digging your own grave if you're employing people that are not trustworthy and whatever.
Yeah.
If it's somebody that's not in your organization, then it's someone else's fault for giving you their password, their email address, I mean. So but
yes,
as far
understood.
as like somebody from outside of your organization or your shoot or whatever trying to hack in, or like if we're talking about a big feature film and that they want to make sure that no one is getting access to the stream or can eavesdrop on the stream, it's totally secure in that way. Nothing is as secure if the password can't be, or the people with the password can't be trusted. And that's why we're working. That's why we've implemented that watermark that we've already put in there.
Yeah, because nobody's going to want to watch a feature film, a watermark right in the center. I mean, I know I wouldn't. I can't stand it when there's a little speck on the bottom right-hand side of the corner.
Yeah.
And equally, you're not going to be streaming the final product unless someone's diligent enough to record it all and make their own edit of the feature film. I don't think we're at too much risk.
Yeah, ain't nobody got time for that.
I mean, one other thing to mention, we have been seeing a lot of people using this technology, not just in production, but in post. So it's really nice to be able to just take one of these boxes and plug your workstation video out into one of these. You can share an edit session or even a color session, kind of for review remotely, and like a creative team can view it in the same way, on an iOS, Android device, a desktop, or even on a decoder plugged into a nice monitor. So kind of has both those production use cases. Someone had asked, I just saw a question on there and I answered on Facebook. Yeah, can Core be linked to any of the Teradek monitoring apps? Currently, Core only works with Core TV, which is our specific Core viewing app.
No, it
But
works with Viewer now too.
It does.
The
Did you
new
ship
Viewer
it?
version is released as of 10 a.m. this morning. So
So-
we added the stream sharing support and standard Core login to our Viewer app, so you can now view up to 4 of those shared video streams in the app.
Well, geez, hot off the press. You heard it here first.
So I guess you had asked a question about the costs for this stuff. I think it's a pretty important conversation for rental houses, for our industry, whether you're a rental house or you're like an owner operator that is sub-renting or whatever. Our industry doesn't really rent by the minute or the gigabyte. Our industry, I would say, is a day rate world, right? Or we may have to do a 1/3 day week, but it's still like a daily rate, right? People don't rent a camera by the hour or by the gigabyte, right? They rent it by the day. So this idea of the bandwidth that you use, the data that you use, being charged by the kind of viewing minute or the volume of data that you're pulling through Core is a new conversation for rental companies and for productions. And so have you guys been renting any of this gear? I'm just curious.
We on the Teradek, yeah. In terms of the Teradek side, we rent the the 4K, the 3000s,
Okay.
all that, but not on the Serve Pro or Cube.
Okay.
However, that's likely to change as
Yeah.
we come out of this COVID situation, because we've already received requests for that for these products.
Cool.
Which is why I'm really glad we're doing this to get the word out there, but for us to fully understand on the Cube side and the benefits of Core as well. So that's something that even us as a company we're greatly looking into.
Yeah.
The added benefit as well.
Okay, so for pricing, there's like a current pricing which I would say amounts to something like, the way that you can look at it now, the way that if you go on our website, we actually have a calculator that you can plug in like the bit rate that you're using and the hours that you're using, the number of cameras that you're using, and it'll like give you your costs. And I think that's useful once you're a little bit more familiar with it. But when you're just kind of approaching it from the first time, you really kind of just want to know how much something's going to cost you per day. And so what we like to say is it's about $10 10, 15 bucks. Maybe let's say it's 15 bucks per viewer per day, because the cost is on the outbound data out of our servers that we run in the cloud. And you know, the cost can add up, but we're talking about a production, you know, film production sending a really nice quality HD video stream through the internet. If you had 10 viewers, you know, that would be, your cost would be somewhere around, you know, $100 to $200 for the day. But I like to say, you'll probably, if you said 15 bucks per person, that would be, you would have enough for sure. We're actually going to roll out pricing that will reflect this, and you won't even have to worry about where you would come in. You will be able to actually sell like 1-day tickets, where you have a, let's just go through a scenario, right? You have a commercial, it's going to shoot 3 days. They say, how do we get on set wire, remote monitoring, right? We have 13 people from our, you know, car company that need to watch, and we got 10 people on the ad agency creative team, and another 7 people. So that's 30 people, whatever. Let's say it's 10 people. That'll make our math easier. Let's say it's 10 people. You say, okay, well, we can do that easy. It's going to cost you, you know, what the bond that you need to send out costs, you know, X, let's say it's 8,000 bucks, right? A bond with 4 nodes. You have that in your inventory. And then, you know, these 10 people are going to need to see that stream for 3 days. So you don't want to have to sit there and be like, well, I think they're going to do I think they're going to do a 15-hour day on day 2, but on the other 2 days, it's going to be an 8-hour day. So, you know, whatever, that's X number of hours times 10 times this many megabit per hour. Just say 15 bucks a day. So you put your markup on top of that. So you know it's going to cost you 150 bucks a day for the data out of core. You can charge them whatever you need to know, but you know that you'll never have, it's never going to be more than that. So I think that's kind of like a good way of looking at it, is like, you know, 10 to 15 bucks cost per person per day, depending how long they stream, but just let's say it's 15 bucks. And then that's like, you know, 12-hour day, 14-hour day, you'll never really exceed that. You're never going to be underwater if you think about your costs in those terms. And I think that will help productions and rental houses, because you never want to have your crew or your production go back and say, oh, we use more gigabytes, we need more money, right? Like they're going to, you know, say good luck with that, right? We agreed to this much money. So I think that's one of the things that when you approach core now, it doesn't really have it super simple to understand. As you send these out more and you'll see like how much people are really using them, you'll develop like a more nuanced understanding of those things. But like, if you just think about it as 15 bucks a day per person, per stream, that's kind of a good way to start. And then as we roll out these new kind of pricing for the cine world, there's going to be the ability to buy like bulk days at a higher discount, so that you can, you know, if this becomes like the universal paradigm where every camera that goes out needs a bond, and you need to, you know, 10, we've seen commercials that are like regularly 20, 30 people viewing. And so if if that's happening all the time, you can have your own core account, which has like 1,000 days in it at a you know, a better cost to you, and you can rent those out. You can dole those out as needed. So that's kind of what's coming. But right now we have it more of like a on-demand pricing, which is a similar, it's kind of it ends up in the same place. It's just not as simplified, right? It's not like an unlimited 1-day ticket. Is that making sense at all?
It does. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, it kind of depends on how they want to break it down.
I just like the idea of being able to tell a production, like, this is what it's going to cost, you know? I mean, it's every other thing that you rent is like that. So we want to kind of keep it in that model for this stuff, because it gets confusing otherwise.
Well, and is there any possibility that the rental house could rent the hardware and then
Good question.
the production would actually be responsible for the subscription and the data side of things.
That is absolutely how you could do it. There is complexity to that, which is like, you know, you have to have a production that's not like completely technologically, you know, incapable or inflexible. But I would say like what the rental house can add value doing, even if like, let's say you don't want to have your own core account with a ton of data on it, right? You can say, okay, give us your credit card number, we'll set it up for you. It's going to cost you about this per day. And they, you know, you can set it. What I would think is a nice way to do it is either have your communicate your renter how to do it for them, or you yourself as the rental house sets up the gear, gives them the password, you know, to change this password and put your credit card in basically, or give us your credit card and we'll make an account for you that's set up. All you have to do is, you know, pay the credit card bill at the end of the month. It'll work that way. So I think
we're hearing both. We're hearing kind of a little bit of both. It's like for like TV, for like episodic TV, where they're shooting over and over, and it's going to be the same group doing this for months. That's the kind of customer that is probably going to benefit from having their own account and kind of managing it that way, versus other people for the short commercial job, where it doesn't necessarily make sense to sign up for something and have this account sitting there that you're only going to use for 3 days. So we've heard kind of desire for both of it, and we're still going to see how it makes sense for people to end up using what people kind of adopt as the kind of standard.
Yeah, so like I think those are the two paradigms, right? Like you as a rental house have your own account, depending on how it like falls. You may want to never use your own account. You may want to just have that as be part of the thing that you built to the renter, right? Here's a bond. You're renting the bond for this many days and this many seats, this many viewers that will be needed, right? And those are like 2 line items theoretically, right? There's also the cellular data cost, which is another thing, but let's just forget that for a second and say it's a bond and the data that you need for Teradek. There's also the version of, so then there's a version where the client creates their own account. If you have your own account, you know, we're working on the idea of a secondary private kind of job that would be private from the rental house. So like you give your bond account to somebody, it's a secret from you. You guys can't watch the like next iPhone commercial that's being shot on your account. But I think really in that environment, those people will just make their own account, you know, because it's just.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, and I know we're a little over here, over the hour, and I appreciate it. I did have one final question, if that's okay. Just in terms of how you see the industry moving forward for Teradek products in general, do you guys see the cinema side gravitating more towards the bond and core aspect, or the cube and like you know, iPad or what you were talking about earlier, shipping the cube to the producer or whoever, you know, plugging it into their TV and viewing the stream that way? Because it seems like there's 2 aspects, right? Which
you mean for the viewing side of it, or the whole
viewing side? Yeah.
I really feel like what we're seeing is the majority of people are watching on an iPad or on their desktop. It's cheaper, right? You don't need to send a piece of hardware. You know, you don't have to plan ahead and FedEx it the day before or whatever. They can look at it on their phone or their laptop or their iPad, right? And that's just like tough to beat. So I think the decoder side of it will just be a more specialized version of it that you want to send a high-end monitor to somebody that's even calibrated or something, and that's just kind of like this premium version of it. But there's also people that are just so technologically limited that they almost, I mean, I don't know, there could be somebody that would be more capable of plugging a thing into their TV and to their router than logging onto an app. Although I don't know, I feel like everyone knows how to log into an app right now, right? I mean,
especially nowadays with Zoom.
For God's sake.
Well, listen, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Your wealth of knowledge of the Teradek products is exceptional. We really appreciate it. We appreciate all the support you guys have provided us. I'm sure I'm echoing that for all the rental houses out there. I feel like Teradek specifically, obviously Creative Solutions, but the Teradek products are really designed for our post-COVID world. So it'll be really interesting to see, how our industry uses those products on the cinema side that have already been used for a while on the broadcast side. But Greg and Richard, thank you guys so much. We greatly appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for having us. Cool. And if you have any questions ever on any of this stuff, please reach out to us. If you bother us on Facebook, I mean, I'm on there answering questions.
I usually just bother you guys straight in your emails or with a call.
Yeah. For you guys, please, you have our info for people that are watching. Hit us up on Facebook or write us an email to the Teradek account or phone call even. So have a good one, and thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Thanks
Thanks
everyone.
a lot.
Thanks, everybody.